I think if I told you what I thought the most important and number one thing of captaincy was, most people are quite surprised, but when they think about it, they go, actually, that is the most important thing. I think the most important thing is looking after your own game first. I feel like a good captain inspires each individual in the team to feel the best about themselves that they can. And again, I think that outweighs any tactical decision. Because there'll always come a time like, should we have an extra slip or should we have an extra fielder out on the boundary? And I was like, if in doubt, if your mind is in that place, go with the attacking option. You can always defend later. So time is the only thing that creates pressure. So I always think that when you're under pressure as a captain, get your two best bowlers on, take a deep breath, have a chance. And often during that time, things will become apparent. Just because you're the captain doesn't mean that the rest of your team doesn't want to win as badly as you do.
Cricket Love Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Adam Hollioake. Adam, how's it going in Australia?
All good, mate. All good out here in the Gold Coast, the land of milk and honey, mate. It's all good.
Adam, I really appreciate your time today. This chat is going to be focused on the art of captaincy. Obviously, you're one of the greatest cricket captains in the county game has ever seen. Was it 3 championships with Surrey? Also captained the England one-day side as well. How did you take to the art of captaincy? Did you see yourself as a natural leader? Just to start this chat off.
So yeah, it's a strange one. I wasn't a captain during any of my age groups. I was always sort of a bit of a naughty kid. I was a bit of a rebel. So the first time I was actually asked to captain any game was it was Surrey in the Surrey first team. And that was when I was, 21, something like that. And when Graham Clinton, who was the coach at the time, came to me and asked me to captain, I thought there was someone standing behind me. So I thought they were talking to someone else because I just never had been given the opportunity. And I think the situation that I was given the captaincy was a difficult one because, not difficult, just unique. Sorry, we had a lot of good players, but a lot of people had to go at the captaincy and just hadn't done it very well. So they said, look, we're thinking about making you captain. And I thought, it was a good situation because I had nothing to lose. I never had any aspirations to be a captain. I never set out to be a captain. And when they asked me, I was like, okay, well, I'll do it. There's no one else to do it. But I didn't have any desire to be a captain long term or anything like that. So I think that helped a lot, not really caring if I was a captain or not, in itself took the pressure off me.
Even outsiders, perhaps looking at the subject of cricket captaincy, they may be forgiven for suggesting that it's all about the tactical nous when you're looking at an individual. But would you say that's almost too simplistic? And if one gets given the role, they almost learn that as they go through the ranks, as experience comes on them, as more about the actual individual?
100%. That's a really good point you make. And it's I actually, a while back, I sort of started jotting down some of my thoughts on captaincy, which I never did when I was captaining. I just did it. And then it was after I retired that I started writing down, like, okay, a lot of people said a lot of nice things about my captaincy, and to me, I didn't understand why. I just thought I was just doing what anyone else would do. And then I had a lot of time on my hands, so I had some time to analyse what I did that was good, what I did that was bad, what I thought made a good captain and what I thought didn't make a good captain. And I wrote a bullet list point menu as such as to what you want to be if you're a captain. And when I started, I wrote all the things. First of all, I just wrote them in any order, and then I started putting them in importance, what I thought was importance. And I think if I told you what the number one, I thought the most important and number one thing of captaincy was, most people are quite surprised, but when they think about it, they go, actually, that is the most important thing. I think the most important thing is looking after your own game first and making sure that your own game is in order and you're performing to the best of your ability. A lot of captains, they become captain and they start putting the needs of the team first because that would make sense. But by doing that, it's kind of counterintuitive. By doing that, you're not looking after your own game. And then what can happen, generally, not always, the captain's one of the better players. Usually you'd say the captain's someone that's not likely to get dropped. So you'd expect that they're one of your better players. So if you're not performing at your best as an individual, I find it hard to believe that any tactical decision that you're going to make is going to make up for those runs that you're foregoing. So, for example, I averaged 40 in first-class cricket. If I'd totally given, just forgotten about my own game and just concentrate on the captaincy, I score 80 runs every game, 40 runs in the first innings, 40 runs in the second innings, and then I get a couple of wickets, a couple of catches. All of a sudden, my team's got to make up. If I'm not performing and I'm getting a couple of ducks, dropping some catches and not getting any wickets, whatever captaincy and tactical decisions I can make, I don't believe will make up for that.
How easy then did you find it to almost compartmentalize the different elements, obviously an all-rounder yourself, batting, concentrating practice on your batting, your bowling? Did you find that easy to separate it?
I didn't. I can see how other people do. The reason I didn't was I had a lot of energy, and at training I was always running around wanting to do more stuff. So if I wasn't batting, then I was bowling. If I wasn't bowling and batting, I was fielding. So I made sure every minute that I was at training, I was doing something, not because I was incredibly disciplined or anything like that. I just got bored sitting around. I see some guys at training and they're sitting around, they're knocking bats in or sitting around chatting. I was just something which I never did. I was either batting, bowling, or fielding. So, and for me, that I always wanted to make sure my bowling was up to speed, because I felt that if I was bowling well, if I wasn't bowling, then the team couldn't afford to bowl me if I wasn't bowling well. And then usually that would affect my confidence as a batsman. So I really concentrated on making sure my bowling was up to speed first. That was the number one thing, and then batting next, and obviously fielding is important as well. But and that's just point one. That's just point one of the list. So you'd think tactics would be up there, but I really, and it depends who. In a one-off game, if I got asked tomorrow to go and captain a team, I don't know any of the players, and I go, well, then tactics are important, because I haven't got an opportunity to get to know the players and influence them. But I think that having a good relationship and having the respect of your players is really important, that you lead yourself with, humbleness, first of all, and you're approachable, all those things. Once you've got the respect of your team. So number one, you can't exchange your runs and your wickets or your catches. That doesn't happen. So you've got to get those. The next thing you can do, I think, is you can influence each individual to feel good about themselves. If I took you as a person who's incredibly at his most confident, or at a time in your life when you're at your least confident, I think even you'll admit that there's a big difference. Like everyone I speak to, I mean myself included, if I'm incredibly confident, then I feel like I can do anything. But when I'm lacking confidence, you feel like everything you're going to do is the wrong mistake. So I feel like a good captain inspires each individual in the team to feel the best about themselves as they can. And again, I think that outweighs any tactical decision, like should we have a third slip or should we have a short leg. I think those two things, the actual runs and wickets that you take, and inspiring each individual in the team to feel as good about themselves as you can, they're the two most important things in captaincy.
When you say that, getting to know the individual, the personality behind almost the stats, does that mean you can almost get the best out of them and know them better when it comes to those pressure moments in a game?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's just trying to remove the fear of failure from play. We're all burdened with it at some stage in our life, where we're like, oh, this game seems so important, and you've got someone saying, you've got to be successful, you've got to do this. If you don't, I'm going to get the sack as the captain, or we're going to lose and it's going to be your fault. That pressure can make the best players in the world underperform. So if you can find ways of removing that from your team, whether that be via the way you communicate in team meetings, or when I'm talking to you at the top of your run-up, I just go up and say, mate, just try and do this. Just try and get him out. If you don't, then, it's not the end of the world. We've got someone else who'll have a go. But I'm not putting all the pressure on you. I'm not going to you saying, right, if you don't get a wicket this over, you're off. It's still language and how you talk to people. But, and I don't know, I think it's something you can learn and get better at, but a lot of it just comes about by I think your upbringing. Like, I was brought up, my parents were like big on manners and respect, and I think I tried to. I'm sure there's going to be people out there who said that I had my moments. I'm human, but I always tried to be respectful and polite to people on my side, and I'd always tried to encourage them to just express themselves. So I think and probably the most important thing above even what I said before, there is one thing which is even more important than that, and I think it's just having good players. So, we were fortunate at Surrey. We had some really outstanding players, and I always say that was the best thing about my captaincy, was I had a great team.
When it comes to the actual kind of decision making on the field, the young captain is perhaps watching this. Would you advise them to always go with the positive, aggressive option, or again, would that be almost a too simplistic statement I've just made?
No, not at all. That's actually one of my mottos. My motto is, if in doubt, because there'll always come a time like, should we have an extra slip or should we have an extra fielder out on the boundary? And I was like, if in doubt, if your mind is in that place, go with the attacking option. You can always defend later. So I always used to try, and if I was in a 50-50, because we're always, there's so many decisions that can be made, especially when we're all sitting on the sofa, we're all experts. So, but when you're out there, you come up with these decisions. I always think you're better off if a catch goes through that third slip, which you've just put in, you don't get that back. But, you don't get that opportunity. But if you go for a 4 where you were going to put a fielder, you can find a way of reversing that somewhere down the line. So making up for it. But I always think that always attack first, and there's always time to defend later on.
The great teams almost need like a leadership group as well, a leadership group around the captain as well. What are your views on that when it comes to a successful side?
Yeah, we didn't have a official leadership group. It was just we had Alex Stewart, and we had Graham Thorpe, and we had Mark Butcher, and we had a lot of guys who played for England. So there was just I would speak to people about different things and get their opinions, and everyone's opinion has to feel valid. It's an important thing. Even the youngest person, I used to love asking the guy making his debut in the team what his opinion on our side was, because he would actually give the most honest answer. He'd be the one who was seeing it with a new set of eyes. And it would often be sort of our first indication if we were slipping into bad habits. So I'd always make a point. A lot of sides, they don't value the younger guys' opinions. I think every member of the team is important if you want to be successful.
Communication, the key. Even when it comes to dropping a player, would you say that's one of the most difficult parts of captaincy?
Yeah, it is tough, especially when you got a side like we did. We had guys who picked for England but then got dropped by Surrey. So that's really hard. It's and the other thing is, this is sport at the end of the day. So a lot of these guys are your friends. So it's not enjoyable. It's probably the least enjoyable thing about the job, but you got to do it. I think one of the things I used to say at the beginning of every season is, if I come to you and say that you're not playing, it's not because I don't like you. The answer is going to be that we just think that we're going to pick our best 11 players to win that game. And if you're not picked in it, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you, but that's always going to be the reason. We're just picking the 11 best players to win this game. That doesn't mean it's not going to be the next game. I mean, of course, people want feedback. This is the end of my career. Do you think I'm no good? Then that's where the communication comes in, and you've got to either say to people, well, actually, I don't think you're any good, and I think it's time for you to retire or move to another team. Or, no, I do think you're good. It's just that we've got a bloody good team. We've got other players here at the moment who are playing better. Just, that's just the way it is, So I think the words you use are important, and the way I think, and if you're honest, it may not pay off that first time. It may not pay off that second or third time. But over a period of time, what happens is people get to know you as an honest person, and when you're talking to them, they realise this guy's honest. He's not got any agendas. He's just telling me as it is.
Do you think aside when you do pick a side from a squad, do you think it looking back at your experiences, is it more horses for courses, or would you always pick the best 11 regardless of the surface that you're playing on?
Well, so that question's kind of answered within it. You pick the best 11 to taking into consideration conditions, potentially the next game ahead, if you don't want someone getting tired for another important game. So there's a whole bunch of factors that you've got to take into consideration. I mean, it's important to not overthink it as well. Sometimes we can overthink things. I think that keep it simple, but definitely conditions play a part in that. I mean, sometimes you're lucky and you have we were very lucky. We had a great side. So there was probably less of those decisions that I needed to make. If you look at the Australian side in the 90s or the West Indies side in the 70s, they didn't have a lot of selection problems because the side was so settled, the best players played, and everyone knew who they were. I was talking the other day and I was saying, what's fascinating is not only can I name the best sides in the world, I can give you the batting order and who bowled because they're so settled. So if you look at that, the West Indies side in the 70s, you had Desmond Haynes, Gordon Greenwich, Viv Richards, Clive Lloyd, Gus Logie, Jeff Dujon, and you can name the side. And then in the Australian side in the 90s, you can name it. You can name it in batting order. In the bowling attack, you can almost name when the bowlers are going to bowl. So it's so being good actually takes a lot of decision making out of the equation.
Again, if a young captain is watching this and they've had experiences where their bowlers getting just pumped around the ground, almost losing control of the game, what advice would you give to that young captain when it comes to pressure on the field, keeping it calm, keeping their head and making sure they kind of stick to their philosophies as such? What are your views on the subject of pressure as a captain on the field?
So we've all been there when we're under pressure and our minds start racing, and we just need to breathe. We need to I just need some respite. That might be just 2 or 3. So I find that when you get into that position and you're not quite sure what's going on, go to your 2 best bowlers. I have to say this at the big occasions when the game's really important, you want your 2 best bowlers bowling. And that buys you some time because you've got your 2 best bowlers bowling. Hopefully they're going to give you a couple good overs each and get your wicket. And when the wicket gets, that often changes the dynamic of the game. But even if they don't, they're hopefully going to keep it tight for 4 overs. And that's going to give you a chance to calm down and then make some decisions on how you're going to approach the rest of the game. Because there's only one thing that causes pressure, and that's time. If I say to you, you've got to give me an answer, I said, but you've got a week to think about it. Well, there's very little pressure on you. But if I say, I'll ask you a question, you've got to give me an answer in 5 seconds, and you start, oh, is that right? Isn't that right? So time is the only thing that creates pressure. So I always think that when you're under pressure as a captain, get your 2 best bowlers on, take a deep breath, have a chance. And often during that time, things will become apparent. So that was a common thing. And then other thing was, if in doubt, attack. So they're 2 mottos which I live by. And then what that does is you're preparing yourself for those situations when everyone's panicking by giving yourself a set of rules. so that when they occur, you've got, okay, this is what I do. It's like when you practice fire drills. If I said to you tonight, I'm going to come into your house and set it on fire, what are you going to do? You're going to run around. You're going to be terrified. You're going to be just probably making horrible decisions. But if I say to you, okay, you're going to practice it, this is what you're going to do, you're still going to be terrified, but hopefully you're going to make a better decision. So that's what all I'm saying is, you're going into a game, there's going to be times when the game's getting away from you. When that happens, get your 2 best bowlers on and buy yourself some time to get your thoughts together and calm down. That's your fire escape drill.
What did you find to be the most difficult element of captaincy?
I think managing expectations of players who probably weren't quite good enough to get into the side but thought they were. That's hard. Everything else is, and I guess there's the speculative, everyone's got an opinion on captaincy. So I was pretty good at that. But people will say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. And I'd be like, well, I've never made a mistake in hindsight. But at the time, you can only make the decision that's in front of you. So I would obviously, you'd go to praise your performance. And when I'd look back, I'd always be critical on the bad decisions I'd made. But then I'd say, well, okay, I've got to be honest with myself. The only way you can improve is by giving yourself an honest appraisal. If I look back and say, well, at the time, even though it turned out to be the wrong decision, at the time, was it the right decision? And if you say, yeah, well, it was the right decision, then, you've got to be mentally strong enough to let that go. So sometimes that was hard. Sometimes not being mentally strong enough to look back in hindsight and say, no, that was the right decision, despite it not turning out right.
Adam, it's been a fascinating chat on the subject. Just to end on, what would be your best tip for a young aspiring captain?
My best tip, I've given a few of them away already, but my best tip would be, just because you're the captain doesn't mean that the rest of your team doesn't want to win as badly as you do. A lot of people, they become captain and they lose their sense of humour. They think that they're the only one that's trying and nobody else is. If you feel that that's the case, don't start losing your mind with your players. Just get players. If their players don't want to be there, then get other players. But I think you'll find that 99% of the time, people do want to win just as badly as you. So don't lose your sense of humour and remain calm.
Adam, perfect. Thank you again for your time today. Really appreciate it, and all the best for the weeks ahead. Thank you.
No worries. Cheers.
So Neel Khagram, Cricket Love Stories, Adam Hollioake. Thank you.